So good afternoon. I hope you've been enjoying the sessions today. Kind of curious to see how things went for people. I'm Chris Paul, cinematographer and editor for 35 years. I own Post Office Video in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Our other host today is Donna Caldwell, who is Adobe Solutions Consultant for Education. If I could speak properly, I'm sorry about that, Donna. I don't know. Suddenly my tongue just got all stuck. Adobe Solutions Consultant for Education. I think that's better. All right. So today, first of all, I have pretty much everybody muted at the moment. But like I said, please do go ahead and comment in the chat. And we will have some Q&A at the end of this. And also, if you have anything that comes up that you want to ask us, Don and I will be watching chat all the time, so we'll be sure to bring that up during the event so we get your questions answered. We're going to be actually presenting 3 things today. I'm going to be doing a short presentation on how to get good video from your smartphone. That's going to be about 15 minutes. Then Donna will do a wonderful presentation on Premiere Rush. We'll take a short break after that. And then Donna will do about 15 minutes more to finish Rush. And then I'll do the final session going from Rush to Premiere Pro. If we have a lot of questions, we can go a little bit after because I did schedule a little bit extra time after if people want to actually get video and audio on and actually do some Q&A. But the main thing like I said, is if you have any questions or anything comes up, please put that in the chat and we'll be sure to get to that. All right, so as far as the best way to present the smartphones with video, like I said, I've been doing cinematography for 35 years, but smartphones are the reality for everybody. We all do video with smartphones. It's just what we have. And it's for 15 minutes, I could go on for hours instead of 15 minutes. So what I did is I made a short little video that will give you examples of good techniques and practices on getting the best results from your smartphone. So I'm going to go ahead and run that for you now.
Well, it'd be great to make video with a camera like this, but most of the time, this is what we have to work with. Don't worry, I'm here to show you how to get better videos with your smartphone. The most important thing about good video is not good images, it's good audio. Here's an example.
I was searching for something. I couldn't say what it was, but suffice to say, I would know when I saw it. I was searching for something. I couldn't say what it was, but suffice to say, I would know when I saw it.
Phew, not good. Now I'll show you how to improve your audio by connecting an external mic to your smartphone. Here's an affordable mic that you can plug into your smartphone. Comes with this fuzzy cover that you can use to reduce wind noise. You'll need an appropriate audio cable, and if your phone's going to be pretty far away, you'll need an extension cable as well. And if you're using an iPhone, you'll also need this lightning to analog adapter. Another good choice is a wireless mic pack, like this one. Also, be sure to wear headphones or earbuds like these to monitor your audio while recording. Okay, let's try it out. This is audio recorded on the internal mic of my iPhone. It's about 5 feet away. This is the same setup, but now I've mounted an external mic on my phone. Sounds a little bit better, but I think we can do better yet. This is the same microphone, but mounted much closer to me, and I think it sounds a lot better. And that's really the key. It's not necessary to spend a lot of money on a microphone, but it is important to position the mic as close to the subject as you can. Here's how I did it. As you can see, I just mounted the microphone on a selfie stick, and then I put the selfie stick on a stand. You could just as easily have someone hold the selfie stick for you.
And you can also improvise. You don't have to use a selfie stick. You could use anything, like even a broom handle, and just tape the microphone on. Just don't forget you also need an extension cord or else a wireless connection. If you were to believe these smartphone manufacturers, you would think that these would always take perfect video every time, but we know that's not true. So sometimes you just got to take control. Right now we're looking through my phone using a third-party app. This gives us much more control over the camera than the built-in camera app does. You can see that the background is overexposed because the camera doesn't understand that it's supposed to be black. But I can just manually change this right now and give us the right exposure. Another area where manual control can be very helpful is focus. Your phone will do its best to guess what should be in focus, but it doesn't really know. So with manual focus, we can decide. For example, we can decide if we want the light in the foreground to be in focus, or would we prefer the tape in the background to be in focus. Setting focus can be tricky, especially for things that are far away. A good tool to help with this is a focus chart like this one. They're cheap and easy to carry, so just always have one with you. Selfie sticks can be a lot of fun, but they're too shaky for presentations or instructional media. Instead, why not use a tripod? This is the one that came with my mic. This is what it looks like when everything's assembled. Mic and camera and tripod. If you happen to have a sturdier tripod sitting around, you can also use that. Much better. Now we come to my favorite subject, lighting. Once again, we may not have professional lights, but there are simple fixtures that are affordable and can work quite well. But whatever you do, don't use fluorescent ceiling lights. They are the worst. This is a clip light. You can find it in most hardware stores. It's very handy because you can basically clamp it wherever you need it. And it puts out quite a bit of light. This is a paper lantern. You can find them in party supply stores or craft stores. Sometimes referred to as a Japanese lantern or a China ball. It has a beautiful soft light that I love. Sometimes you'll have hard, harsh, ugly lights like from a street light or from our relentless New Mexico sun. But there are still things you can do to soften it. You can take some fabric and hold it up between the light and your subject, and it'll soften it quite nicely. Even an old bed sheet will work. You can also use a reflector to bounce light into those shadows and soften it up nicely. You can use sheets of styrofoam from a hardware store, or you can even use the sunshades from your car. Oh, and just one more thing. People often ask me, should I hold my phone in portrait mode or should I put it in landscape? That's easy. If they're going to be watching it in landscape mode, like on YouTube, put it in landscape. Or if it's going to be seen in portrait mode, then shoot it in portrait. You know, whatever floats your boat. Well, that's it. Thank you. If you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer. All right, I hope that was helpful. Let me go ahead and admit a couple more people here. Sorry they missed the video. So let's see, Donna, did we get any questions about that? I don't think Donna has her audio unmuted at the moment.
And she did have a quick power outage. She had to log back in, Chris.
Oh, I
so
see.
She might be on her way back.
Thanks, Jason.
Yeah, sure. I actually posted a question, but now there's another one that's since come up.
All right, so I do see yours. So it's about, does UNM rent gear like this? No, not that I know of at least. But this stuff I'm talking about is really cheap. I mean, like, for example, here's the China ball that I used. And you can get a whole pack of these for like $5. The clip lights that I used, was from a hardware store. That was about $5 for this. So we're not talking about really expensive gear. Even the focus chart that I recommend, this one costs a little bit because it's on plastic, but you can just get them just on paper too. But the main thing is this is kind of a really crucial thing because, you know, like I said, cameras try to do their best to autofocus, but they just don't know what's right. So it's much more important that we do that instead. Bottom line is, so you know, may not rent this stuff, but most of these things are really cheap, and so it just wouldn't hurt to have them in your car. Okay, we have a question about the mic that I used. Yeah, okay. I think actually I did. Okay, so Lori probably came in later when I was showing the video. I did demonstrate how to use the focus chart, but you'll actually be able to see it pretty easily. Basically, just the center area will go from fuzzy to sharp. And so it's really easy to tell even from a distance whether things are focused or not. The moment you use it, you'll see how it works. And like I say, you can get them for like $10 on eBay. As for the mic, I'll have to maybe share a link with that. But essentially, it's a very basic thing. And I just got this actually on Amazon, and it has the mic with the cover and the appropriate cables and the tripod. By the way, I should say quickly, I probably didn't cover this, is depending upon what kind of smartphone you have, you need 1 or 2 adapters to make it work right. If it's an Android phone, just a regular connector like this would probably be fine. But if you have an iPhone, it gets tricky. You're going to need both the adapter that came with your phone to go from 1/8 inch to Lightning, but you also need a very special cable that these mics usually come with. They go from a 2 to 3 ring cable. I don't know if you can see this very well, but it's just a crucial thing with Apple because if you don't have this cable, it won't work. So if you're buying a mic, make sure it comes with a cable that specifically will make it work for an iPhone if that's what you have. All right.
Hey, Chris,
yes.
Donna's at your front door if you want to let her in.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize she wasn't back in.
That's
I'll get her right now. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Sure.
There she is. I mean, make sure that she's a host again. There we are.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, that was, so that's probably happened once in 3 years. And of course it happens. Right?
Of course.
But we've been having a heat wave the last few days. And I have a feeling that with everybody working from home, it's kind of taken the circuits in suburbia down to the minimum. Anyway, sorry about that. I'm glad you were
problem.
All right. So should I go ahead and get started?
I'm absolutely ready for you, yes.
Okay. All right, great. All right. Hi, everyone. Again, I am so sorry about that. Let's just jump into Rush. I want to emphasize before I get started, Chris might have mentioned this, that two things that are so amazing about Rush, which is why I'm having so much fun with it, is one, Rush is a multi-device and operating system platform. Okay, I'm just going to mute this. This. Trying to save bandwidth here. So that means that I can create, edit, and share video on my laptop, desktop, on my cell phone, that's Android or iOS device. I can also round trip. This is something that our mobile apps have not previously been able to do. So for example, if I have an Adobe mobile app like
Just a minute, excuse me.
Oh, sorry.
Donna, we don't see your screen.
Oh, sorry. Thank you so much for reminding me. All right, here we go. Let me move this out of the way. So if normally when you are trying to create a project from a mobile app, it's a one-way direction. If you decide to push it to a Creative Cloud desktop app, you can't go back. Lightroom is an exception that allows you to round trip. Spark on an iOS device also lets you, what I term as round tripping. With Rush, I can do that, which means I can start my project on my cell phone where I'm taking the video. When I'm away from my desktop, I can start editing that. I can even complete it if I want, but I can also then go back to my office and I can use my laptop or desktop to continue editing. I can then go back to my cell phone if I want to continue editing, but I can just continue this process until I decide that it's complete. What we're looking at right now is just the open screen for Adobe Premiere Rush. It's very simple. You can see I have several projects here already. From this screen, I can create a new project. I can also go to help or learn or community. And I'm just going to go ahead and click on create new project so we can get started. And I also want to mention that Rush has an in-app tutorial, which means I don't have to go anywhere to access other Adobe tutorials on Rush. I can if I want, but I have gone through this tutorial before, so it's not showing me, it's remembering who I am. But at any point, if I'd like to review that tutorial, I can just go to the Help menu, click Start Tour Again, and away I go. Notice that it will take me through this process using these blue stickies, virtual stickies, and it will take me the entire process of creating a very simple video for my very first time. I'm going to skip the tour right now because you have me, and we're going to go through this together, but it's a great resource. It only takes about 5 minutes to get through it. All right, the first thing I want to do is I want to name my project, and I want to be specific about it. So I'm going to call this an ocean study. And I also, wow, if I could type today, I also want to make sure that I put a date on here. And the reason for that is when you start making videos, it's surprising how many files you start accumulating. And I want to be sure that I know exactly what file this is. It's also a good idea to throw any assets that you're going to use for a project into a folder. And if you are going to access from a cloud storage area, one of the things you can do is click on Copy Media, and that will ensure that when you bring content in from that location, it will keep a copy locally. I mentioned earlier about the fact that we can round trip between a cell phone and a laptop or desktop applications. In order for those devices to all be able to access that project, I need to turn Sync with Creative Cloud on. Otherwise, this means that when I'm creating a video, it's keeping it just locally on this machine. And depending on your workflow, that may be just fine. We have sample media that anybody can use to start working on a first video. Sometimes you don't know what clips to use. You may not have something immediately on your phone that you want to use, though I'm pretty sure all of us have video on our cell phones. I'm just going to go up to the desktop and access these same assets in a different location. And I'm going to start adding these to my project. I'd like to start with an aerial view of the site that I'm going to be at. This is going to be in the Philippines. And so I'm going to click on that. I get a 1. It's telling me the order that these are going to be added into my timeline. Just giving me a little bit more visualization. I then want to have someone talk about why we're there, what the experience might be. So that's going to be number 2. Give people an idea of we're going somewhere. I'm telling a story with this video. So I'd like to have a video of people getting on the boat that's going to take us on this boat ride. And then I'm going to finish with an aerial view of the boat going out to the ocean. I can always backtrack and click on another clip. The other thing is that even though it is setting up this horizontal view of what's going to come after each clip, I can always make those changes inside of Rush. So never worry that things are not in the perfect order when you want to get them into your timeline. All right, at this point, I'm going to just go ahead and click Create. Rush is going to prepare the media for me, and it's going to open up in my default workflow. Now, notice if anybody here has ever been in Premiere Pro, which is an amazing video editing program, you'll know that there's a very big difference between the interface you see here and that in Premiere Pro. And this is intentional. This program is designed for people who may not want to be a professional videographer or do not have a lot of time to dedicate to Premiere Pro. We also know that there are people who, some of my coworkers who are in the commercial side, who have departments with professional videographers, they say that they use Rush to just do a quick in-house video or to even storyboard a process. The other great thing, which is what Chris is going to cover in the next session, is that if you start in Rush, you're not limited to keeping it there. You may get really hungry for additional features and you want to move this to an application that can take it further. So we're going to be covering that in the next video. All right. So I just see two main things on my screen right now. I see a preview screen, which if I drag my timeline icon, I can get an idea of what this set of clips is going to look like. I can do that either here with this little blue button, or I can do it right on the timeline. I may decide that I would like more room for my timeline. My timeline can have up to 4 video tracks and 3 audio tracks, which is really what differentiates this from the old mobile app that we used to have that just had 1 track for everything. This allows me to really create a professional video in a very simple interface. If I'd like to change the monitor size versus the time frame here, I can always drag these 2 little horizontal icons. Looks like a hamburger without the meat, just the buns here. And I can make that adjustment, which is really helpful. I can also, if I'm previewing, go to full screen. Below this preview screen are some navigation buttons. The first and foremost is going to be play and pause. You're going to be doing this constantly. So a shortcut for this is to just press your space bar, which activates play, press the space bar again, and that activates pause. I must do this 50 times or 100 times as I'm double checking things, going back just a few seconds to see if something is working the way I want it to. All right, so I'm going to skip this first part right at the moment. I can see that that clip is selected because it has a gold frame around it. Notice as I click on each clip, it's very easy to identify that that is the selected clip. If I want to change the size of a clip or I want to delete a clip, I can either click the little garbage can over here on the left, or I can grab the left or the right side, and it's going to show me what part is being clipped or removed from this clip. And I shouldn't really say removed, it's being removed temporarily, but in Rush, all edits are non-destructive, which means that anytime I want to go back and change my mind, I can always just drag the other direction and get that clip in its entirety. I can see that below the talk track, I have a blue audio line, but I can't really see it very closely. So I'm going to click on that track, and I'm going to use another tool down here at the bottom called Expand Audio. And now I can see the audio wave going through just to help me make cuts. I had talked to an instructor who uses Creative Cloud in an English course, and he had a student who had a hearing impediment. And she came to him and said, how am I supposed to make these videos? And he said, just use the visual of your audio track and make your appropriate cuts and overlaps. And he said when everybody submitted their projects for grading, this individual had the best cuts of anyone because she was looking at this audio map to let her know when people were pausing, what was the best place to make that cut. And that's what I'm going to do next. I can't keep this whole clip. I'm trying to keep my video as short as possible to make it more effective for my audience. And I'm going to go ahead and play this. And it is not playing. Hang on, let me double check this again when I came back in. Maybe it, nope, Zoom, external microphone. Chris, can you tell me if you're hearing that? I don't think anyone's hearing that.
I am not. Did you check the use computer audio when you started your sharing?
I did not, Chris. Thank you, thank you. You are a lifesaver. That is one that I continue to, let me jump out. Oh, that means I have to jump out, right?
That's correct.
Okay, I will be right back, everyone. I'm so sorry.
No, just stop sharing and then begin sharing again.
Okay.
Yeah. So when you go to share again, there's a little tick box that
Here we
Chris
go.
talked about at the
Yep.
bottom.
Thank you, Jason and Chris. I apologize, everyone. All right, let's try this again.
Good morning, Philippines.
Guess what we're gonna go do again? Snorkel! Yay!
So today is day one in El Nido, and this is one of the places when you put in Philippines in Google or in YouTube, you're just gonna see a bunch of videos and pictures of blue water, big rocks and stuff. That's where we are.
All right, there's two things in this particular clip that they're talking about. One, they're going to go snorkeling as part of this adventure. And I do have snorkeling footage, but I don't want to include it this time. So I'm going to remove that portion. The other part of this is that he's talking about seeing these beautiful blue water and rocks. And I'm thinking it would be really nice that while he continues to talk, I have some video that plays while he's talking, so that when he's mentioning those words, you're actually seeing what he's talking about. So I'm going to go back to the beginning of this clip, and I'm going to look for her to lower her arms, which is when she finishes saying we're going snorkeling, yay, and he starts to talk. Let me just see if I have that in the right location.
So today is...
And I might need to go back just a hair.
So today is...
All right. So that's what I'm going to do for now here. And we're going to talk about maybe adding that second track in just a few moments. I want to get through some other pieces, and that we call B-roll. Now I'm going to move on to the next section. And this is where they are loading the boat. There's a lot of background noise. And I can only watch people load a boat for so long. I want people to get the idea that they're going somewhere, but I don't think I need to show every single person jumping on that boat. So I'm going to drag now from the right-hand side to shorten this clip. Just completely drag and drop. And I'm going to back up until, let's see, I've seen 1, 2, and I'm going to have this young woman with the backpack. And I think that is good enough. Notice that every time I shorten or expand a clip, Rush is filling in those gaps. I don't have to worry about moving clips one way or the other. It's always going to keep that constant touching of the clips from one to the other. All right, we move to the next clip. And I have this boat going. I'm going to shorten that just a little bit. And the last clip shows this boat going out to sea. I think it's a beautiful clip, but it's probably a little too long for my viewers who really want to get a sense of this adventure in a shorter video. So I'm going to shorten this, get us closer to that boat, and I think that should do it. All right. A couple other things I've noticed is that when I go from clip to clip, it's very jerky. So if I just demonstrate with this, and it just jumps into the next one. Sometimes these really sharp jump cuts are really effective if you're going to use music. I have a video that I did where I put some really fun music in the background. It's really fast music, and I jumped at the beat of the music. It tends to subconsciously, get people motivated. If that's the feeling of that video, this has a very different feel. This is more of a tour type of adventure. It's much calmer. We're looking at these beautiful waters. So what I'd like to do instead is I'd like to bring in some transitions between these clips that would be a little bit softer. Again, I'm going to go back to these navigation tools. We talked about play and pause. This next one will move you forward 1 frame at a time. And the next one will just help me jump to the beginning of another clip. So I click, and I can see that now I'm at the beginning of this clip. If I go up to the upper right-hand corner, I do have a few more tools available to me that are hidden until I need them. And one of them is transitions. Every time you hover over one of these tools, you get an animated GIF, which is really helpful to help you visualize, yes, that is the tool that I want. And in fact, that is the tool I want. I have 3 transition tools: cross dissolve, dip to black, and dip to white. I think between these clips, what I'd really like is to have a cross dissolve. So I'm going to do one of 2 things. I can drag that transition right over the top of the edge of the clip, or with that clip selected, I can just double click and it will add that transition to the beginning and the end of the clip. I'm going to move back just a little bit, try that out. And I see that I do in fact have that transition. I can determine whether I think that's long enough. By default, they're 1/2 second, as we can see up here in the right-hand corner. So I could make that transition, if I select it, I could go back and say, well, maybe I want that to be 0.75 seconds, or maybe I want it for a full second. I can also zoom in, which I can do by manipulating this gray bar at the bottom. Dragging that bar left or right takes me along my timeline, and dragging the little circle at either side of this bar will either zoom out or zoom in. Now remember, this is not impacting the length of my video. It's really just like you would zoom in Photoshop into a photo. I can just see a smaller amount, but I'm going to see it in larger and in more detail. So I could click on this and I could drag it if I wanted to, instead of using the edit panel, just so you know you have that opportunity. Okay, let's look at that.
So today
that looks good. I'm going to move over to the next clip, and let's add a cross dissolve to both sides of that. So now I have a cross dissolve between each one of these clips until I get to the end. And at the end, I'm going to do something slightly different. But I'm ready now to look at putting a title in. I'd like to introduce this video with some information to let people know what it is they're watching. I'm going to move my timeline all the way back to the beginning. I can see I'm at 0. And I'm going to access another tool. This is this tool that has a T on a little film strip. And this is where I can access my titles. You have over 60, I think around 60 titles in here. Most of them are motion templates. So the animation, the text, everything is built in. But because it's a template, I'll have the ability to modify that to match my project. But I can do this within seconds rather than going in, creating a motion title graphic, and then coming back. So I have my favorites just to save some time, which I've starred. I have 3 of these that I really like, and there are 2 of them that I think might work for this. I'm going to drag them both down into place, and I'm going to put them on a track above this track. So now I'm using 2 of my 4 video tracks. I'm also going to drag another one down because I want to test each one of these to see which one is going to work best. And then I'm going to go ahead and close this so I have a little bit more room on my screen. Let's use my space bar, and I get this really nice animated, basically an unfolding and a folding. And this is another one that comes in from all sides and then it fades away. Though I really like this one, I'm concerned that I have a lot of white objects over here and it may not work as well. I don't want anyone to lose the left side of the text because I really like this white on the blue. So I'm going to click on this one and delete it and drag the other one into place. And now it's time for me to modify this a little. First of all, I'd like to move it more towards the darker part. I have these boats over here on the left, so I could move this title. I can just click on it and drag it over here a little bit more. I can also use the transform tool to do this through sliders or through numbers if you don't want to just drag it. Now what I'd like to do is I'm going to edit this. So I'm going to bring that title back open. And you can see that for each word, I have all of these attributes. So for the word vary, I can change the font, the color, shadow, a blur, opacity. There are all of these things that are built into the template for me to change. So let's get a title on here. I'm going to call this Ocean. And then we're going to go in and do intertitle. And we're going to make this study. All right, let's see how this looks. Oh, and I'm also going to move it slightly over so I get just a moment of just the water and this swimmer. And let's check it out. All right, that's plenty of time. I might even want to shorten that just slightly. But I look and there's a lot of video left, and I don't think my viewers need to just keep watching the same view. It's moving slightly. It is done by probably a drone, so it's really beautiful. But I think it would be enough for my users or my viewers to see about that. So I'm going to drag this back to shorten it a little bit. All right. And one of the final things I want to do to this is add some music, because I have some clips that have no sound, and then I have clips that have talking. And I feel that there's a jerky audio sense with this, that I could apply a soundtrack in the background to just tie this all together. We have several free soundtracks that are royalty free. There are lots of websites out there that provide that function as well. Anytime you want to add media to your Rush video, you get to go back to the same location. It's always this add media button. It's a blue circle with a plus sign. I can add photographs, audio, video clips, and on my phone, I can also capture video at the same time. I can also add voiceover, which I can do right on my own computer. It does a pretty good job of filtering out excess noise. But for right now, let's just go back to media, and let's choose this audio track called Dreamland. It places it in here, and let's see how this sounds. Oh, let's close this too.
So today is...
And immediately we recognize we have a problem. That soundtrack is so loud that though it sounded really good when there was no sound with the clip, it is way too loud for the people talking. And I don't want to have to drag to create a ramp down and a ramp back up. And luckily for me, Rush has a feature called auto ducking. If the sound, the audio portion of that track, is marked as a speaker, and I can identify that quickly by just looking at the little talking head right here. I hope that's visible to everybody. That means that Rush is going to recognize this track, this clip, as a talking track, and it will duck the audio. So let me just expand that audio a little bit. I'm going to go to yet another tool that we haven't made use of yet, which is my audio tool. And right here, I have this option called auto duck. Now watch this bottom green area when I click on that. Takes it just a couple seconds, and you can see that before that clip starts, it starts ramping that volume down. That volume is kept down by a default of 87% of the original volume, and then it ramps it back up after that clip is over. Now 87% is a lot. Sometimes I find that I can't even hear a little bit of that soundtrack, so I'm going to drag this just slightly back to about 80, and let's see what that experience is like.
So today is...
And we immediately feel that softening, and it goes into the talk track. All right, this particular one, if I look at that, it has interpreted the audio as music, and I can understand that because there's a lot of talking mixed with boat sounds and rumbling and background noise. So I'm going to change that type to other. If I change it to other, I don't have as many settings. So another option that I could use, just because there's so much noise, right? I could just mute it. I could bring the volume down manually if I wanted to. One of the things I've kind of played with is I turn it to voice, and then I go in and I reduce echo and the background noise. And it really helps just get rid of that reverberation. And I can hear the music just slightly in the background. All right, so we're just about ready. Let's go to the very end. In fact, I'm going to zoom out of this. I can see that my audio track is so much longer. So let's drag this back in, snap it into place. I'm sure you've probably noticed that it will snap to wherever my timeline is, which is really helpful when you place your timeline in a certain place to just make sure that everything aligns. And let's just take a look at the last second of this video. All right, way too abrupt. So one of the things I want to do here is go back to that transition tool, and I'm going to add a dip to black. And I think I might even expand that a little bit. Let's zoom in here. And let's see what that looks like. All right, I like the dip to black, but the sound is still far too abrupt at the end. I feel like we have this really beautiful scenery and then bam, the audio ends. So it just so happens that I can use my dip to black on audio clips just like I can with video clips. So I'm going to drag that back down and I'm going to lengthen that a little bit because it takes a little bit of time. And let's listen to that now. Perfect. All right, and I am ready to go. Trying to keep a close eye on the time. I do want to get to that B-roll, but just because I have to make sure that everybody knows how to create this video, we essentially have stitched together our video story. We have sound, we have different video clips, we have a motion title. I could even add credits at the end if I wanted to. I have templates for that as well, but I haven't really produced this video. This is not in a format that someone who doesn't have Rush would be able to view. So let's go up and make sure we deal with that first. And if we have time, we can come back to that B-roll. We have two menu items within the interface. At the very top, of course, we have additional menu items, but we just basically have edit and share. Edit is where we've been doing all of this, bringing information in, changing it, editing it, but now it's time to produce that video. I can always keep my source document, just like you would with any other piece of software, to go back and change it. I can't tell you how many times I change my mind and go back and change my videos because I think, oh, I can make it just a little bit better, right? Then you get hooked. But I'm going to click right now on the share button. And we see we have different destinations where we can share this. First of all, locally, I just want to create an MP4. I want to make sure that I have a physical copy of this video. So I'm going to go ahead and name that. And I would normally add a date, but I'm trying to move here a little bit quicker. Below that, I also see that I have access to YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Behance. If you would like to publish your video at the same time to any of these social media channels, at the same time that you are creating a essentially a hard copy or an MP4 of that, you can just turn the switch and log in. Now, I'm not logged into Facebook, Instagram, or Behance at the moment, but I am logged into YouTube just to show you how many options you have when you push that out, because I know you just wouldn't want to push it out to the social channel without being able to make those same decisions that you have when you do this manually. See that I'm signed in because it's giving me the option to sign out. I can add it to one of my playlists, give it a special title, give it a description for YouTube. Also, I can designate the privacy level, just like I could if I did this manually, and I can add some metadata, some tags so that people can find this if I want that to happen. I can also schedule when it will be published and to keep a copy of that file. You can use the default settings, but we also have advanced settings that you can use if you want to really hone in on a particular resolution or frame rate or the audio channels or quality. Okay. Again, just to save time, I'm going to turn that YouTube off and go back to local, and I'm going to go ahead and export that. It will show me, just because this is going to take a couple minutes and I want to get back into the project, I'm not going to go ahead and click export, but when it does, it'll go through, give me a progress bar that it's rendering the video, and then it'll say that it's published. If you are curious where it is saving it, this is the destination, and you can always change that. I could go in here and say, no, I think I'd rather have it on my desktop. and that's where it would save that project. All right, we've got a couple more minutes. If there aren't any questions that I need to address right now, I can show everybody how to do B-roll if they would like to see that. Okay, I'm not hearing anything, so I'm hoping that means that we can go ahead and continue. So just to go back to this stage, this is where he was talking about where they were. So I just want to hone in on this. Just grab that spot.
Pictures of blue water.
Nope. Need to go a little bit further back.
Videos and pictures.
There we go. That's what I'm looking for. When he starts talking about videos and pictures, and I'm going to go back to my add media. Remember, I go back to that single button to add any type of media. Click on media. And what I'm looking for is this beautiful picture. It's a beach aerial shot, and it's absolutely gorgeous. And I think it really demonstrates what he's talking about. All right, so it added it after the clip where my timeline was. And what I'm going to do is physically just drag that up and to the left. When I do that, I'm popping it into the channel above. It is sharing the same basically timeline as my title, but the two of these are not going to interfere with each other. If I had titles that were going to occur off and on, I could also take this and move it up to yet another row. Because remember, I've got 4 of these, but just to keep space, for space sake, I'm gonna go ahead and leave it here. I think I'm gonna probably have to trim this just a little bit, and let's see where it's coming in.
A bunch of videos and pictures of blue water.
I want to shorten that just a little. I want him to get a chance just to really talk about the videos.
A bunch of videos and pictures of blue water, big rocks and stuff. That's where we are.
All right, and I need to shorten that just a hair, because what I really want to do is when he says, that's where we are, I want it to come right back to him.
Stuff. That's where we are.
Okay, good. All right.
A bunch of videos and pictures of blue water, big rocks and stuff. That's where we are.
All right, I might even shorten that a little bit. You see, it's addictive. You just want to get it just right. All right, that was a lot of information. In the next session, I'm going to talk about very quickly, actually, if there are no questions, I can show you one more thing which gives Chris more time in the next session to do more of his really exciting information. I'm so excited to hear this about taking this project and moving it forward. But I get a lot of questions from people who say, can you put a picture in video or video in video? And the answer to that is absolutely yes, you can. Instead of making this clip the same aspect ratio as what's below it, I can change its aspect ratio, essentially changing its size, and I'm going to make sure that maintain proportions is there. And we're just going to, oops, I didn't want to do that. I'm going to go ahead and bring that down in size. And we're going to move this up over into the top corner, because maybe this footage I want to show, maybe it's really important to continue to show this gentleman talking about the project, and this is the impact I would get.
Videos and pictures of blue water, big rocks and stuff. That's where we are.
And I have another project where we all had to do this 1-minute video project. And I always go back to this because I was forced to use some techniques that I wasn't familiar with when I first learned Rush, because I accidentally took vertical video on my phone and horizontal for the same experience. And I thought, oh, what am I going to do now? I don't want the whole video to be vertical and I don't want it to be all horizontal. How can I take advantage of this? So what I did is I used exactly the technique that I just showed you, but I timed it with the music. So I was able to put in some vertical photos, right? And then when I got to the part where I was having a lot of video that was vertical, that was just placing those on the different tracks and making sure that I timed them so that they would either, you know, whatever feeling that I wanted to have with it. But it's very easy to do, and it's no more work than what I just mentioned about just changing the aspect ratio and size of that clip that sits on top of another clip. So if anybody was interested in that, that's how you do it. Okay, any questions?
Looks like Jason's already answered the one that's popped up so far that I can see, which was taking stuff out of Rush.
Okay.
Um,
Can I ask everybody, how many people, has anyone in the audience used Rush before? Can we get some people responding in the chat pod? And I'd also like to ask, has anyone used any other video editing? Meaning, is this going to be your first experience doing video editing, video creation, or have you done this before and you're just interested in learning about how Rush is different? I'd love to get your feedback on that. Most of my experience before I came to Adobe was, you know, it was back in the days of the Creative Suite. So you had to purchase a whole nother suite to access video. So I would typically hire people to do video because I was on the creative side. I mean, video is creative too, but it had its own suite. And this is one of the things I love about Creative Cloud, that I have access to all of these tools. So today, I think we have to be even more adept at communicating digitally. So if I want to do a video, I have something that helps me do that very easily. I have a page layout program if I want to create a digital document. All of these that used to be spread out across different suites allows me to pick and choose what I need for that project, or to create 3 different modes of communication with the same content. We're seeing a lot of schools doing this now, or they're calling it multimodal, where the student has to learn how to communicate. And with each type of modality, whether that's video or a podcast or a desktop publishing program, they have to realize what has to be included in that to make that an effective conversation. It's been amazing seeing how they've navigated this and what they've done. So having access to all the tools, I know sometimes people say, well, I don't always use all of them. I don't use all of them every day, but I do jump around depending on the project that I have to create. All right, did we get any responses in the chat pod?
Oh, plenty, Donna. There's a lot of people that have done video before, some in Premiere Pro, some in other applications, some are brand new. So not a statistical analysis, but we looks like we have some budding videographers out there.
Oh, that's great to hear. That's awesome. Well, I'm hoping that you all will jump into some project. We have just a couple more minutes, so let me, I was worried I was going to run out of time, but I'm going to switch really quickly to QuickTime so you can see my phone. This is Rush on my phone. And even though I have far more limited space, let me get rid of this background. You can see that I really have all the same functionality. In fact, I have one more thing I can do on my phone, and that is that as I take video, I can be automatically adding it to a Rush project by using the camera that's built into Rush. And there's a really great YouTube video on how can you make camera adjustments within Rush, the Rush camera, to improve your video, which is a nice thing to look at. It's only a couple minutes long. But let's say that I wanted to create a new project. I can add media. I'm going to go to, let's say, oops, I didn't want to go to photos. I'm going to go to videos. And I can, here's one that I just took a couple weekends ago. In addition to that, I could also add live video. So let me just go ahead and turn my camera on. This is not going to be anything, you know, worthwhile keeping, but here's my capture button in the bottom left-hand corner. Hope you guys can see that. And as I take video, it's going to capture it. So as I move around to my, ugly workstation here, the moment it's done, you can see that it's been popped in the bottom right-hand corner so that I could take additional clips if I wanted to. This is some of the adjustments that Auto and Pro, we don't have time to go over those, but it's definitely something to look into. It's going to go ahead and prepare that media and add it. And in just the same way that I can do voiceover, I have that option here that I can add that. I'm going to go ahead and go back to editing. You can see I can scroll through this. I can start play just like I do on the desktop. Notice the controls are exactly the same. And I also have more tools that are available down below. And if you don't see the tool that you're looking for, don't worry about it. Just drag and you'll see that there are more tools here. So for instance, I have transition. If I scroll to the right, I can see transform. I don't want this clip that I just took, so I'm going to click on the trash can and away we go. And then I can go ahead and share this as well. So don't be afraid to start working on this projects. I have coworkers who, I had a sales executive who used to go with a group of women and they would do these trips. And she said on the way back, she was editing the video. Obviously she wasn't the driver. And she would have her video ready to post when she was done. So take advantage of this. Again, you can always push that to your desktop. It's, in fact, if you've synced it, it's going to be there waiting for you. And then as we're going to learn in the next few minutes, you can push that over to Premiere Pro. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Excellent.
Thanks, Chris.
All righty. So are we ready to transfer to me, or are there some questions first?
No questions. Everybody seems to be pretty well set. I had a follow-up question for Laurel about a Zoom video recording that she wanted to edit. And Chris, maybe you can mention real quickly about if you're using recorded video from Zoom and then taking it into Premiere Rush or Premiere Pro.
Yeah, I haven't done that yet. The key, if you're doing Zoom, is that you can either record to the cloud or to your computer. Just make sure when you set up the Zoom meeting that you're recording to your computer so you can easily access that footage, and make sure you set it up to record in a place that you can easily find it, like your movies folder.
And does it set up as an MP4 video file?
Yes, it's an MP4 set at 720p.
Gorgeous. Okay, so that'll work for everybody.
Yeah. Just don't be surprised that the quality isn't the best, because Zoom isn't designed as primarily for video quality. It's designed just to be able to conference a lot of people. So, just don't expect it to be as good as it looked like from your end.
That's great. And Rachel put a nice offer out there to everybody about some guest videographers for University Communication and Marketing. Thank you, Rachel.
Absolutely. We also have some video guidelines that go along with our university branding. That's up at brandassets.unm.edu. And yeah, we're always looking for video partners around campus who can help us gather and push out video representing our wonderful departments and programs on campus.
That's great.
All right, so any more questions for Donna, or shall I take over here?
We can always circle back. So Chris,
that is true.
Go ahead and
all right.
run with it, and we'll see how it goes. Great.
Excellent. All right. So I will go ahead and start myself here. All right. There I am, and I need to make sure I'm spotlighted. There I am. Very good. All right, I'll turn my video back off because my face is just not that good looking. Well, actually, I need to keep it on, right, because I need to share my screen. So very quickly, let me go ahead and share my screen here. By the way, in case you came in late, I'm Chris Paul. I've been doing this for about 35 years now, back when I was cutting tape with razor blades. That's how old I am. By the way, Don, if you can get started meeting, oh, I see somebody's meeting people. That's great. Thank you so much. So first of all, I'm going to show you Rush on my screen.
Hey, Chris.
Yes.
I know you're just getting started. Is this a separate recording, or is this still a continuation of the first hour?
This is a continuation of the first hour.
Is that what you'd recommend for housekeeping purposes?
Yes, because we actually did this in 3 parts. I mean, I started and then Donna took over and then so we actually had 3 segments of this all together.
Beautiful. Okay, just checking.
Yep. Alrighty, so I'm going to go ahead and first of all share my rush screen, which will look very familiar, I presume. Does everybody see my rush screen? I'm presuming they do.
Yep.
All right.
You see it?
Very good. Alrighty. So the reason I'm showing this to you is because you're seeing this is the same footage that Donna had. But the important thing to know is how easy it is to take your Rush project from Rush and open it in Premiere. And you might say, well, why in the world would I do that? Because Rush is a wonderful program. Well, there are several things that you can do in Premiere that are kind of more enhanced that you don't have in Rush, because Rush is just designed to be very easy to use and works well on mobile platforms as well as desktops. I'll quickly go through these, but don't worry about remembering because I'm going to actually show you examples of each. But just quickly so I can say, first of all, you can solve some problems, like sometimes your color might be what you want it to be or exposure might not be what you want it to be. Donna showed how you can fix bad audio in Rush. You can do even more in Premiere and even more on other Adobe programs such as, I remember right now. Anyway, and you could do cool effects like the Ken Burns effects. You can do chroma keys, like you're probably used to seeing that in like the weather, but we're actually doing chroma keys all the time now to do cool effects. And so many YouTubers actually do that as a common thing. And it's actually useful for instruction as well. Finally, I really wanted to say that Premiere is a really good way to also get into other Adobe apps. Adobe makes just a whole world of wonderful, useful apps. And they do it to confuse people. They do it because they make wonderful tools that each do a really good job at a particular thing. And it just turns out that if you're working in video, Premiere is kind of a hub for all of that. So for example, if you were working with photos, you had trouble with the photos, you can actually round trip from Rush to Photoshop and back to do the wonderful fixes that Photoshop can do. If you want to do really cool effects that aren't available in Premiere, you can take it and send that project to After Effects and once again, round trip that back. And finally, there's Adobe Audition, I'm sorry, I didn't mention earlier, which is an absolutely outstanding audio program, particularly if you're working with video. I know a lot of video people like me say that it's actually their preferred audio program. And then finally, there's actually a program that you get that's always included, even if you get just Premiere and nothing else, that most people don't even notice, called Adobe Media Encoder. And it's actually a wonderful time saver that I use all the time. So I'll share that a little bit at the end. So first of all, I've shown my screen and hopefully everyone's seen that it's just, very basic Rush project. I'm going to stop my share for just a moment because I'm going to switch over to Premiere and I'm going to start sharing my screen again. It's not actually seeing it. I apologize. Give me just one quick moment here. Let me just get out of this. All right, here's Premiere. So hopefully now Zoom will actually see it. Well, we'll just hope that it does. Let's just go ahead and see this. So can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
Excellent.
Looks good. Thanks, Chris.
All right, I appreciate that. So the big thing going from Rush to Premiere is that this is the first screen that comes up when you launch Premiere, and it may look really confusing. You might say, oh my gosh, what do I do? I'm so confused. The reality is that this is actually just a helper screen. It's kind of like a template. So it kind of helps you get started with your projects or continue projects. And once you get using it, you finally realize it's just kind of a layout that helps you understand what's going on. For our use right now, if you look over on the left here, you'll see a button here that says Open Premiere Rush Project. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead and click on that. And you can see these are various Rush projects I have on my computer, including this one right here. And I'll go ahead and have this open up in just a moment. Now I'm in Premiere Pro, and sure enough, here's the same thing, but in Premiere Pro. So that's the wonderful thing for me on the Creative Cloud is that your stuff doesn't suddenly go away. It's in the cloud, and you can get it again. The one thing I caution you about is that maybe the first time you move a project from Rush to Premiere, if you want to do it, if say you shot some video in Rush and edit it and then want to go to Premiere right away, realize that things are syncing over the cloud, so they may not instantly be available, but give it time. It's just that, you know, the internet is not always the fastest, particularly if, you know, in a location where you don't have the fastest connection. So, but don't worry, it's happening. It's just that it's happening in the background. What I would suggest is if you don't see it, just maybe take a break, get some coffee, or work on something else, and it will show up, honestly. Anyway, so you can see basically here's the timeline, just like we had with Rush. Here's our media, just as we had with Rush. We have 2 windows instead of 1. This is for previewing video. For example, if I wanted to open up this shot here, I can preview it without affecting my sequence. And then this is my actual sequence. I really like this because this way I can compare shots. For example, I can say, here's what's happening in my sequence here, and here's something else that I would like to put into it. So I can see both at the same time, which I find very helpful. A really helpful thing too in working with Premiere is that, once again, you don't need to worry about all these windows that can seem confusing at first, because there's an actual workflow that works very nicely. And here's how it works. If you look on your lower left here, there's a window called Project. All your video, your audio, your photographs, you know, your sequences, they all go in this project. It's like a bin that holds everything. And then you work clockwise. So for example, if I were to double click this video here, I'm looking at the wrong thing here, there we are. And load it up, I can see it's out of my player. And if I want to put it into my timeline here, I want to rearrange things a little bit, I can just drag it in. And now it's in my sequence. So basically the 2 things to remember are your project is where everything is. If you can't remember where something is in Premiere, it's in your project window. And by the way, there's a nice little search window even that you can search for things. Like if I'm looking for music, like Dreamland, I can just say, it'll actually find things directly and quickly for me. Because after a while, you're gonna have a lot of media. So this is really helpful. So anyway, we're like working clockwise. So so just remember, this is my Rush project with all my media. And then I just work clockwise. There's other stuff here, but once again, don't worry. I kind of liken it to if anyone ever plays guitar, that there are people who are just masters at playing guitar, but we don't have to be. All we need to do is learn a couple of chords and sing some folk songs, and suddenly people say, hey, they're cool, they can sing a song. And Premiere is very much like that. You don't have to learn every single thing and every single icon and every single other thing to make good use of it. So the bottom line is, don't be intimidated when you first come to Premiere. I'm going to close this particular project because I preset a whole bunch of projects for us. Here we are. Alrighty. So I'm going to go through these various things that I can show that what Premiere can do that'll enhance your experience with footage that you've already worked with in Rush. You've already seen how to bring things in. So next, I'm going to show how to do the ever popular Ken Burns effect. There's some similarities to what Donna was already doing, but I'm just going to do a little more motion to it. You can see in my timeline here, I have 4 photographs, which are okay, but they're kind of boring. So I want to give a little motion to them. So I'm going to do 2 things. First of all, I'm going to add a dissolve between each one of these so that it'll transition smoothly between them. And by the way, just a little trick here, if you hold down the command key, it'll select all your transitions. And then if you happen to be using a mouse and you right click on it, it's really helpful. A mouse often will have what's called contextual menus. So depending upon what you're doing, if you right click on something, it'll come up with a different menu depending upon what the item is that you're clicking on, which is really helpful. It just shows you the things you might need at that time. So once again, it makes life a little easier. So anyway, I selected all these transitions. I'm going to right click on it and say apply default transition. And so now instantly I have dissolves between all of my photographs. But it's still pretty boring, right? So here's the next thing I'm going to do. I can see some of these pictures are kind of horizontal, you know, landscape, and some are kind of vertical, kind of portrait. So I want to basically decide what's interesting in each shot. So I'll quickly do what what are called keyframes. Now, don't worry about remembering all the stuff I'm doing here. All I'm doing is demonstrating what Premiere can do. There are wonderful tutorials from Adobe. There are wonderful tutorials on sites like Creative Cloud that have, Premiere Pro users who just do this night and day and are very helpful. And of course, like I say, tech support on Adobe is wonderful as well. I'm just going to quickly show you how I'm going to make these pictures move. So I'm clicking on the first one. I go to my upper left here, and I have what are called effect controls. If you look on the left here, it looks like things that look like little stopwatches. What we're doing is we're telling Premiere that we're going to do something that's going to change over time. So in this case, I'm going to click them both just because it'll be convenient. And you can see when I did that, it made these little diamonds right here. These are what are called keyframes. These are like kind of a standard animation technique. If you're doing this in Premiere or After Effects or a different kind of editor, you'll often see this kind of thing. What it's doing is we're telling Premiere where to start and where to end. So in this picture, I want to start pretty much where we are, but I want to zoom into this wonderful sun right here. So I'll start there. I'll move further into my sequence, and I'll scale it a bit bigger. That's nice. And then I can move these keyframes so that they start and end with this event. So now, if I play this, I'm pushing into my picture. This picture is a little different because it's more vertical, right? So instead, I'm going to do a little tilt on it. Think of it as like if you're using a video camera, you can tilt your camera up and down, and we're good. That's how we're basically doing the Ken Burns effect for this. So once again, I'll make a keyframe. And that's a good starting point. Let me just see how much I have here. By the way, you probably don't see this, but these pictures are actually, can be larger than what the image is, because you have a scale in addition to position here. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. Start about there, and I want to kind of tilt up to show these beautiful flowers here. So first of all, I'll kind of position this so that we're starting below. That's nice. That's my starting point. Then I will go ahead and move. And here's a wonderful thing. If I want to move to a different point in my timeline, move the picture, it'll automatically make more keyframes for me. I don't have to keep clicking and making more keyframes all the time. If you look over here, it automatically made a keyframe for me here. And also this blue line is telling me that's the motion path of what this image is going to do. I'm going to move it just a little bit more and then maybe have it stop. So what's going to happen here is I'm going to have it just smoothly scroll. So let's go ahead and play through that. There we go. I apologize for how jerky my screen is. It's just Zoom is kind of slowing down my poor old computer. I apologize. We could do the same move with this guy right here. So I will go ahead and actually copy this parameter. This is kind of like a power move, so don't worry about it if you don't know it ahead of time. But if I say Command C to copy and Command Option V to paste, I can actually paste these parameters that I made so that this picture will do the same thing that that one did. It's not perfect because it's a different picture, right? So I need to do a little bit of adjustment here. So once again, we're going to zoom this up. In case you're wondering, this is in Santa Fe at Meow Wolf, one of my favorite places in the world. If you haven't been there, I highly encourage it. Excellent. I think that's probably designed after like the robot from the When the Earth Stood Still. All right, yeah, we're tilting up. All right, and one last picture, and then I got to move on because I'm going to use up all our time here. But here's a fierce predator that is terrifying to all people. So we'll get a little idea of what this actually is. So I'll set a keyframe to start. And then I will zoom out. You'll see, actually, no, that's my wonderful cat Garfield, who is normally very friendly, but he hates wearing hats. So that's why he has this expression. So yeah, and by the way, he was named at the shelter, so don't blame me for calling him Garfield. He was just sort of named that, and I didn't want to confuse him. Okay, so that is pan and scan. If any questions come up, we can definitely get to that. I'd like to tell you, by the way, that pan and scan is not just limited to pictures. You can also do with video. I'll show you one I made right here. I have 3 videos going to show the whole thing so you can see the whole timeline. There we go. And if I play it, you can see there are actually 3 videos moving across the screen. The way I made that is I made a sequence that is 3 times as wide as normal. If you look at here, you can see that there are the 3 videos side by side. You can make a custom sequence that's any size you want. Once again, this is more advanced stuff. Do not sweat it, but just realize you can do stuff like that, and it's a lot of fun. So this is how I did. I just basically made each of these videos side by side, put them into a standard sequence, and then move that sequence from right to left. So one of the things that looks like it would be really hard to do, you know, like for a professional effects person, is something you can actually do, and it's really not that hard. Okay, here's a really cool one that I'm going to tell you how to do, and you might say, there's no way I would ever do this. Why in the world would I ever do this? And that is using more than one camera at the same time. Now, this is actually done a lot if you're doing, for example, an event where there's several things happening at the same time. Let me just open up the footage for you. I can show you. By the way, in Premiere, my absolute favorite key in Premiere is the one that's the tilde or accent key. It's on the upper left, just under the escape key. And what it does is it makes any window that you're on full size. I particularly love this when you're working on a laptop because a lot of times you can't see everything. So I'm going to click on my project window, make this full size, and I'm going to go ahead and start looking through these. And oh, here we are. Here's my multicam media. I'm going to look at this. Down below right here, you can look at this in various ways, as a list or as video or as free-form thumbnails. And you can see there are different shots from this music video that this guy did. So for example, if you were recording a concert, you might set up one camera that's getting a wide shot. You might be getting one shot from the side, and you might be getting a close-up of the artist. But it could be something else. Somebody could be doing a lecture. You might want to get several sources of video. Or you might be doing a music video, because those are always fun. I've done a lot of those. And you might have, you know, someone singing plus a wide shot, plus you might have some cool action effects happening. And it used to be really difficult to edit this because, you know, you have to keep going back and forth as far as, you know, am I here in the music? Am I there? Where am I here? I just don't know what to do. But Premiere makes this super simple, and I'll show you how to do it. I'm going to select all of my videos. And by the way, I just did that by holding down the mouse and drawing a lasso around it so you can select a bunch of videos at the same time. I'm going to right click again like I did before. And once again, this is that contextual thing, right? So it'll basically bring up all the possible things that I might want to do. One of the options here is create multi-camera source sequence. It's a long word, but all it really is just going to make a sequence that instead of having all my clips stacked horizontally, it'll stack them vertically. The trick with doing multicam is that you need to be able to synchronize. So each one of these videos that was recorded at the same time from a different camera will play at the same time. So you don't have to worry about, you know, trying to make sure that events match up. There are a lot of different ways to do this, but by far the easiest way to do that for us is to use audio. So if you're going to be doing a multicam project of any kind, make sure that all your cameras are recording audio. Now, it doesn't have to be super good audio. If you just have, you know, built-in audio, built-in microphone on your camera phone or, you know, your smartphone, that's fine. You do need to make sure you do have a good, clean copy of the audio as well. But for the rest of the cameras, just whatever went to the camera at the point is just fine. And for the rest of this, it looks like a lot of stuff. But once again, it's actually already set for everything I need. So I'm just going to click on OK. And it's going through and processing all of this. And it created this multicam clip. Let me get out of this so I can show you how it works. This is still a source clip, just like, you know, just as these are clips, you know, that I can put into my player, you know, and look over from different angles. But my multicam clip is something special. That's this one. If you notice, it has thumbnails for 5 different videos because 5 different cameras were used at the same time. But there's even an easier way to use this. This is a source. Well, how do I edit this? Well, it's super duper easy. Hope you don't mind my saying stuff like super duper. If you look in the bottom lower right corner of your project window, there's something that looks like a little piece of paper with the corner turned up. This is a very useful thing called new item. If you click on that, you can see you can make a whole bunch of things. Or if I wanted to make a project, for example, that a new sequence where a sequence meshed my video, I could drag that over to that new item. And boom, suddenly have a sequence in my timeline. Oh boy, that's really loud, isn't it? I apologize. But anyway, or you have a sequence now that you can start editing away in. But even better for us, if I take this multicam source clip, drag it onto my new item here, now I have a multicam clip. And you might say, well, I don't see that here. How do I know that's really multicam? There's a way to actually turn on the view in your recorder window. Here it is. I'll make this a little bit bigger so you can see it. In fact, I'll just go ahead and make this full screen for you. So you can see here are all my source clips, and here's what's being recorded. So first of all, let me turn the volume down a bit because I don't want to blast you guys out. So I'll go ahead and get to my track mixer here. Let's do it also in the, what did I call this sequence here? I called it CI master, okay. All righty. There we are. All right, and I'm just gonna go ahead and turn down this. Once again, don't be intimidated by this. There are a lot of controls, but just realize this just gives you much more control than you would have in other programs. Much better. So if you do a lot of audio work, you can certainly use other programs, you know, but you can actually, in my case, I can usually do most of my audio work directly in Premiere, which is really helpful. Okay, so I've turned our audio down. I'm going to make this full screen for you. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit this on the fly. You notice there's a yellow box around this video right here. You notice it matches what this is. So whatever is yellow is what this is going to play. So instead of having to go mark in, mark out, which is a way to edit, or drag clips around my timeline, I'm just going to play it. I'll wait until it actually starts singing here. It sounds like we're just. Now, if I get back out of this, if you look at my timeline here, you can see it did all these cuts, but automatically, or automagically, you might even say. So instead of having to work really, really hard to make these multicam edits, it's actually just point and click. And you're not stuck with it. If anytime you say, oh, I wanted this to start a little bit earlier or later, you can still change things manually in your timeline afterwards. I love it. Multicam editing is one of my favorite things to do. Alrighty, moving on. Let me go ahead and get my sequences here. Our next thing is chroma keying. All right. So let me get out of this multicam mode here. This fine gentleman is trying on a jacket. But what I want to do is put him over the top of this lovely sunlit picture that we saw before, which is this one here that I took in Baja. So what I do is kind of pretend that he's on vacation, but for some reason he's cold, so he's putting on a jacket. All right, so this is actually very simple to do. First of all, you put your background footage on your lowest track. In this case, will be my video 1. Then you put your clip that you want to chroma key on video 2. By the way, Premiere has an enormous number of video tracks and audio tracks. I've never run out of tracks in my life, and I've had some very complex projects. So never worry about running out of tracks. But it is a good idea to organize your tracks. So for example, very typically, if you have a background, it'll usually be on video 1. If there's an effect like this, it might be on video 2. And then if you're adding, say, a title, you might put it on video 3. Anyway, I have both of these now. At the moment, I don't see the background because it's being obstructed by this clip. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a chroma key, and it will remove everything that's green and show the other stuff that's behind. Sometimes people use a blue screen as well. People sometimes ask, which color should we use? Most of the time for human skin, green works best because there's a good contrast to it. But sometimes you might have a situation where, because of someone's skin tone or some product that you're using, blue might be better. You can use even a different color like red, just depending upon what you're using. Anyway, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back to my project window. I'll make it full screen for you again. Among the various things here, there's also a tab called Effects. And inside here are various effects that you can apply to your programs. I encourage you to play with them as much as you like, but don't overuse them in your edit, because people right away say, why are all these effects going on? Only use them if they're needed. But they're wonderful audio effects, wonderful video effects, wonderful transition effects. Be sure to try them out. We're going to do a video effect, and this effect is called keying. The effect I'm going to use is the one called Ultra Key. So that's this guy right here. So I will get back out of that. There's my Ultra Key. I'm going to drag it right on top of this green screen. Now it seemed like nothing happened. And that's because even though we've applied the effect, it still doesn't know what color we want to remove. So I'll click on my Effects tab, and here's my Ultra Key. In fact, I have it here twice, so I'll probably take it out so I don't need it twice here. All right. Anytime you add an effect to a video track, it'll show up in your controls. Anytime you add an audio effect to your audio track, it'll show up in your effect controls here. So basically, in this side where it says Effect Controls, all your controls for effects that you're applying in Premiere Pro are on the left side here under Effect Controls. All right, so the main thing we need to know right here is we need to tell Premiere, and specifically this plugin called Ultra Key, what we want to remove. So there's a little thing here that looks like an eyedropper. We're going to tell it what color we want to use to remove this. So I'll click on that, and I'm going to sample this green color here. I'll click on it, and voila. Now our guy is having a very nice time in Baja. If you're shooting green screen for yourself, by the way, it's really important to know that how you light it and how you do it is really important. So you see how this is nice, a solid green? You don't want it to be wrinkly, and you don't want it to be too dark or too bright. So if you're doing this for yourself, first of all, make sure it's a nice smooth green screen. I often use clips to tighten fabric if I'm using that. And then I will light the green screen separately from the person in front. Also, it's really important to make sure the person who's doing the green screen is not too close to it, because what will happen is this green will bounce off and some green will get on the person, and then those parts of that person will key out too, which is not what we want. So that's a whole world unto itself. But just realize that there are good techniques, once again, just as with the smartphone cameras, there are things you can get a much better result. The same thing with green screen or anything else. It's less important what fancy equipment you have, and what's more important is that you do good basic techniques to get a good result. Alrighty, let's go to our next thing. I've got some bad audio here.
I couldn't say what it was, but suffice to say, I would know when I saw it. I wanted to go.
This is very much like what you saw in Rush already. It used to be kind of hard in Premiere because you had to go into these various effects that we have here. And you would have to go in to say, okay, it's an audio filter. What kind of audio filter do I need? And it was very complicated. But Adobe's made it much simpler for us now, because they now have a panel called Essential Sound. And it works very much like what you saw in Rush. And basically what it does is it walks you through how to fix your issues. So what I'm going to do here, first of all, is I'm going to say this is dialogue. I'll say maybe like a nice podcast voice would be good. No, let's do balanced female voice. That'd be nice. It brings up all these things that are preset for us, but we need to do a little more because we happen to know that there's also some problems with this noise. So among all these controls here is one called Repair. I'll click on that, and I'm going to click on one that says Reduce Hum, because I think that's the biggest problem. Now let's give that a listen.
I couldn't say what it was,
Oh,
but
much better. I'll show before and after again. It's without.
it was, but suffice to say,
This is with it on.
I would know when I saw it.
You might need to adjust the loudness and other things as well to bring the volume back up because it's taking a little bit of her voice out. We don't have time to get into that right now, but just realize you in fact have a whole bunch of controls that you can use. And if you're not sure what to use, like I said, there's a nice list of presets that you can use. Like if you had a noisy background, to have something like that. If you want to make it sound like it's a radio or make it sound like it's from a bad telephone, all sorts of nice presets that you can start from, and then you can tweak them further to your heart's content. Okay, just as you can fix bad video, bad audio, excuse me, I do apologize. You can also fix bad video. So I'm going to do that now. Let me just go ahead and get this out of my way here. First of all, here's some video that you can obviously see is way too dark. We also have some video that's way too bright. And we also have some video that's the wrong color. These are really common things. Don't feel bad if it happens to you, because a lot of times you have to hurry through your shooting and there just isn't time to prepare everything. I've been there, so don't beat yourself about it. Once again, this used to be tricky because you had to go through all these various filters, but now Premiere has this wonderful program called Lumetri that was actually used to be a standalone color corrector, and it does a wonderful job. The easiest way to use it is if you go to the top of your screen, see there are a number of presets here. Let me move this so this doesn't get in the way. These are for various editing layouts depending upon what kind of work you're doing. The one we need here is the one called color. So I'll click on that. All right, and over on the right, this is the panel I'm talking about, Lumetri Color. So first of all, you can see that this guy right here is way too dark, so we're going to fix that. You can see there are several different things in this panel, but for our purposes right now, all we need is the basic correction. So I'll click on this one called Basic Correction, and our big problem here is it's just not exposed well enough, right? So there's a slider here called Exposure, so I'll just slide that and bring it up. By the way, in Premiere, anything that's blue, it can be modified. So it's not, I can actually go further, I believe, than what the slider can do. So what I'm doing right here is instead of grabbing this slider, I'm actually putting my cursor over the number. It becomes this double arrow. Then I can move my mouse back and forth. I can give even more control there than you can normally get from the slider. That's looking a lot better. Let's look at the next one. Opposite problem, of course, it's just overexposed. So we'll just use the same control and turn it down. Okay, that's okay, but I'm losing kind of my contrast. So I'm going to use this slider to bring some of my contrast back. I'm still not totally happy with it. So I can tweak things a bit, but instead what I'm going to do is put these back to where they were, because there's a much more wonderful control that you can use if you get into tricky issues like this. They're called curves. And they're just, once you start using them, you will use them all the time because they're wonderful. All right, so I'm going to close this basic correction. I'm going to go to curves instead. This line, what it's doing is it's just showing a line from dark to light. What I want to do is bring down the blacks in this scene, but I don't want to mess with the highlights too much. So I'm going to pick a point down here in the curves here and drag down the dark parts so it comes down. And by the way, if you do a lot of editing, you hear people talk about the S curve. This is the S curve. The human eye likes it when things are more set like this. We can go to technical reasons, but just know that if you're shooting by default and you set a nice set S curve on it, which is also called gamma, you will all of a sudden really like the results. You're getting a lot better. Now I bet if I reduce my exposure a bit more here, yeah, getting a much better result. And that's because I set up that S curve. It basically has to do with how the human eye works. Like I say, we could get into the math and science and all of that, but just know for the reality that things like curves like these are your friends, so don't be afraid to use them. Alrighty, moving on. Beauty grading, okay. People often ask, can you get good results with a phone? I'm going to tell you can. And it's mainly because I did some effects in Premiere to make it nicer. This is for a video I did for a glass manufacturer here in town. And you can see it's kind of washed out. And not very interesting. So I did this in 2 stages. First of all, I went to Lumetri and I increased the contrast quite a bit. So it looks a bit better. But then I went further. And what I did is I did what's called a vignette. So I darkened the things around the frame because the most interesting thing is the person's face, right? And I also slowed down the video to half speed. So it looks much more interesting. So I'll just quickly play this for you. So that's the original. That's with basic correction. And that's the final correction slowed to half speed. You see stuff like on music videos or movies and stuff and say, oh my gosh, I could never do that. I'm here to tell you you can. By the way, if you know for sure you're going to be shooting something in slow motion, make sure you set your camera to a high speed, like 120 frames per second instead of the usual 30 frames. That'll make your slow motion much smoother. All right, next thing we have here is fixing an old photo. This is from a documentary I did for PBS for a former governor of New Mexico called Edmund Ross. If you have a chance to see it, I highly like it. I'm biased, of course, because I made it myself. But I really, really like it. But you can see there are some problems, of course, because this is an old picture. Now, a lot of people were asking earlier about round tripping and what things can round trip. This is where the round tripping that's built into a lot of Adobe products really starts to pay off for you. I'm going to round trip this picture into Photoshop because Photoshop is, of course, optimized for this sort of thing. And the way to do this is I'll right-click on it and I'll select Edit in Adobe Photoshop. I'm sorry, I should have had that already running. I do apologize. I should say, well, actually it's very quick. That's good. I should say that in many ways, you'll find that Adobe Premiere is kind of a hub for video work. So you may send stuff out and bring it back in quite a bit. Okay, so here's this picture. And I can see basically there are just some issues with these scratches, for example. One of my favorite tools for this is just the spot healing brush. And it's just very good for just taking out little things like this. Alrighty. This whole area here kind of bothers me a bit. So what I may do is use my next tool, which is called the cloner. And I'm just going to move some of this into there so it looks more consistent. So once again, don't worry about, having to remember everything I'm doing. And if you use, Photoshop yourself, this will actually look, very familiar to you. And I'm going to soften my brush a bit too, just so it blends a little better. There we go. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and select this. And I'm going to move some of this stuff around here. There we go. I'm obviously not doing a perfect job here, but this is just for demonstration. All right. And also in Premiere, there's some very nice filters that you can use that will help things like this. For example, there's one called Dust and Scratches, which is exactly what we have here. So let's use that. And for that, you just want to look things over because you can overdo this. So you want to remove some of the stuff, but you want to don't make the whole thing blurry. So you just want to basically hit a threshold where you've removed some of this noise, but you're not distracting from the image. There we are. Okay, I will save this. Now I'll go back to Premiere. And voila. That's a total round trip. I went to Premiere to Photoshop, made a change, and went back in again. And if I want to do even further things, I can keep going back and forth, do further changes if I wanted to. If I wanted to, for example, say move some of this over here. It's not very pretty, but you get the idea. I'll save that, go back to Premiere. And once again, it's immediately reflected. So these are always linked. Even if you were to turn off Photoshop and shut down Premiere, anytime you open Premiere again, it will remember this. And anytime you make changes to this photo, they'll still be reflected. It's just absolutely a wonderful thing. Okay, one more round trip. Here is a drone shot. Everybody does drones these days. People think they're terrible because they're overused, but I love them, so I still use them. All right, and I want to put a title on here. And while I do have some controls in Premiere for this text, for example, I could move it around. I could have it maybe flying across the screen, using those same keyframes. In fact, I'll just do that really quickly just so you can see. It's just the same as I showed you before with moving video. All right. And then I'll just go over here a little bit. All right, you can see I have my 2 keyframes here. That's okay, but it's not great. It's not pretty, it's not cool. I want to do something really, really cool. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to send this project to After Effects. After Effects is the world standard for compositing. All right. Now, I don't have time to go through the details of this too much. Well, I'll just go do it for you real quick. Here's what I want to do. I like this. I don't like this motion very much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this title so that it doesn't fly across anymore. Actually, I do like that, but I also want a kerning effect at the same time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and actually bring a previous version that I've already pre-built for you here. There we are. All right. Oh, is that not the same one? I apologize. All right, I guess I'll just do it here because for some reason my pre-built one is not there and I don't know why. That's all right. Here we are. Okay, so all I did is, you're probably, if you're working with text, you're used to kerning things, but with After Effects, you can actually kern, you can actually automatically animate almost any parameter. So that's what I did here. I just basically started the kerning wide and made it tight, and it just goes like this. No. And there we are. If I go back to Premiere, let me get my title right here. And here's the same thing. All right. And once again, just as with Photoshop, it's linked. So if I go back to After Effects and say, what I would like to say on this is I'll call it maybe cool flying titles. All right. And I'll put it back here. Save. Go back to Premiere. And not only do I have that reflected, but that top text is also doing the same effect that the bottom text is too, because it's applied to everything. One last thing, and I'll be done for you. There's this one other program that hardly anyone uses, and it's a really sad thing, and that is Adobe Media Encoder. Here's why I totally love Adobe Media Encoder. I'm going to go ahead and quit After Effects so I can free up a little more RAM on my system here. All right. Let's say that I have several sequences in Premiere. Let's say I've got this beauty grading one right here, and I've got this old photo. I can send them out of Premiere Pro, and the easiest way to do that is just go to File and Export Media. And it's a lot like Rush, but just with some additional capabilities. But I'll just go ahead and say for now that I just wanted to see the same size. That's fine. I could just say export, but look over here. There's one called Q. If I click on Q instead, it'll move that project into Adobe Media Encoder. I'll do that one more time with another thing here. Let's do the old photo. Now let's do the cool title. I like the cool title. No, photo's fine. Okay. All right. So I'll go ahead and send that as well. And pretty much the same settings, Q. All right. I will hide Premiere. There we are. So now, what we see here is here are the two sequences that I put into Adobe Media Encoder. Here's the settings that I set for it. And here's the names of them. if you don't know where you're saving your media to, you can click on it and it'll actually tell you where things are going to be saved. I'm going to go ahead and make a new folder and I'll call it Adobe Media Encoder Exports. All right, that's good. I'll save that. And I'll probably put this other one in there as well. All right, so now if I were to start this going, it would start encoding this stuff in the background independently of Premiere Pro, and I can go back to Premiere and start editing. But that's not all, it gets better yet. A lot of times you're going to send stuff to, say, a conference or to YouTube. If you're ambitious, maybe going to a film festival or maybe a TV show, or maybe you're just going to put it in a small file that's small enough to give to your friends. Well, how do I do that? Well, there's a window here that has lovely presets for all of that. It's the preset browser. And some of the very common ones that you might have are these ones down here for social media. Here we are. So let's say, for example, in addition to these high quality ones, I'm also going to put stuff on YouTube, like at 720p. So I'll drag that and add that capability to my encoder. So it's going to render a high quality one, but it's also going to make sure a YouTube one. And I've also got a friend who has really a lot of trouble downloading stuff. So I'm going to make her one because she lives, in a small town and her internet's really slow. So I'm going to add a small YouTube one there too. Okay, I'll say go. And what's happening in the background here is it's simultaneously rendering all three versions of this video at the same time. And meanwhile, like I said, I can go back to Premiere and I can be working away. And it may slow things down a bit because it's using a lot of computer resources, but I can still do some basic editing while my friend Media Encoder is working in the background, faithfully working away. Or if you're tired, you can just go take a coffee break, knowing that it's going to render all of these different versions of these different projects, and you don't have to sit and feed it to Premiere one at a time to export. So there you go. You can fix problems. You have cool capabilities. You can link with other wonderful programs like Adobe After Effects and Adobe Premiere. And then when you output, you can just throw it all into Adobe Media Encoder and walk away and let it do the work and get on with your life. Alrighty, I will go ahead and stop my screen share here and see if there are any questions.
Not really a question, but Chris, I just wanted to say that that was absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much. I learned so much, and even in working with Premiere for several years now, that was really nicely in depth and some great new tools. Thank you.
Great, I appreciate that. Do we have any other questions for me or for Donna?
Donna was trying to get back in. She had another power outage.
Oh, she did. Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't see that because when it was full screen, I couldn't see her. So I'm admitting her now.
Of course. The other thing, Chris, and with the move to distance learning, Media Encoder is great for offering students multiple file sizes of the same video, right?
It absolutely is, yes. All right, let's see if I can find Donna here. There she is. Oh, she's connecting. All right. Yeah, and once again, the main thing is it'd be intimidating. At first, I get all these buttons and all these windows, all these controls, and what am I supposed to do with it? But just understand that you don't need to use most of them. And Adobe has these nice presets for starting a project and for fixing audio, fixing video. So a lot of this stuff is actually kind of preset for you. And there's also a wonderful user community for Photoshop, for After Effects, for Premiere that you can talk to. Like I say, and Adobe has that. And there's also wonderful forums like Creative Cow. So please do contact them because they're folks just like us who want to be able to do this. Let me go ahead and make her a co-host here. There we are. And so go ahead and take advantage of that. All right, Donna, you should be back, I believe.
I am. Can you hear me?
I can.
Oh, I can't believe this. I just got a phone call from my sister saying that this is a massive power outage over
Oh
3,000
no.
customers. So I'm just like, what are the chances of this
Oh,
happening the same day?
wow.
Anyway, I was so excited too. I was getting so much out of your presentation. I just loved all of these. I always tell people that even before I came to Adobe, when I was talking about InDesign, you don't have to be a master at a program to be productive, have fun, and get stuff done. And you really demonstrated that. So thank you. I wish I could have heard the whole thing.
Well, it's recorded, so there you go.
Yeah, awesome.
So were there any other questions? I wasn't keeping up with the chat, so I'm not sure. Oh, there's a whole bunch of questions I have here. Jason, did you see anything particular that we should talk about?
I think I answered most of them, Chris.
Okay.
There was one that I didn't catch the context. I think it was Laurel that asked the question about dragging the photograph, and that was
Oh, okay.
the keying or the adjusting of the S curves. But
Okay.
I missed the context there.
All right. Yeah, I'll go ahead and get Premiere going again in the background here. So let me just see what that question is. Yeah, she was just asking. Yeah, I don't see that. So if you could maybe repost that question, please. Oh, someone was asking, can you round trip from Rush to Encoder? Not that I'm aware of. Jason, do you know? I don't think that's one of the things it does.
Yeah, I was typing it at the end. Really, encoder is like the last mile. It's meant to be the end of the line for final delivery. So there wouldn't be a real reason to round trip in that respect.
Right.
Because you have your either your Premiere edit list or your Rush edit list, and that's what you'd work from. So it really isn't really a valid use, I would say.
Right. So just in case there were any questions about that as far as the photos, let me just quickly, like I said, I don't know if she was asking about the Ken Burns effect or if she was asking about the color correction. If it's the Ken Burns, the big trick with that, you click on the photo that you want to manipulate, you go to your upper left corner, you see there's several tabs here, and one of them is Effect Controls. If you click on Effect Controls, and make sure you've selected a clip, boy, and then you'll see one of the things that's available here is motion. Here are the motion controls. If you want to move things around without creating keyframes, just make sure you click on the word motion. You see how this is highlighted? And you see these 6 control points appear. So you can drag things around and you can resize. I think that Rush works pretty much this way as well, if I remember right. So once again, if you learn how to do this in Rush, you can do the very same thing in Premiere as well. It just has additional capabilities on top of that. And then, like I was saying, if you want to do a motion, what you do is you turn on the stopwatch and you start creating keyframes. There's a little mini timeline in your effects controls here. And by the way, if you work in After Effects, it works almost exactly the same way. So once again, you don't have to relearn things so much. It just matters if some tools are better at one thing and some tools are better at another thing, but you can use many of the same skills that carry over between the different tools. All right, was there anything else?
I think you covered off on pretty much everything. Elaine and Ellie say don't forget to fill out the survey and have a chance at winning $100.
Right.
I think Donna had one other thing she wanted to cover. Is that right, Donna? Are you still there?
I am. I'm using my MiFi, so I don't have enough bandwidth. So let me just interject. One thing that I wanted to mention is that if you shoot video in a vertical format, originally Rush could not switch those formats. You had to manually do it. But now we have inside of Rush, and I will try to show my screen. And let me just see if it will, if I have enough power to make this work. Fun times.
Is there something you want me to screen share instead, Donna?
Let me see. Is this showing?
Yep.
Yes, it is.
Okay, great. In this corner, the bottom corner of your preview screen, this is where you can change your formats, basically your aspect ratio. So if I click on that, it will give me different aspect ratios of 16 by 9, which is what the default is, 9 by 16, 4 by 5, and 1 by 1. And as you know, some social media channels want you to use a particular format. So if you choose to do that, but before you make any changes, I recommend you go back to your asset bin, okay? In that asset bin, along with all of the clips and sound and everything else, you're gonna see something that says sequence, and I can see that right here. It says sequence 1. What I'm going to want to do is click on that, rename it to designate that it's horizontal, then duplicate it and rename the duplicate to vertical. Open that, close everything, open back up that vertical, and then go change this aspect ratio. Now you have 2 versions so that, you know, if you decide to go back to the horizontal, you don't have to undo the work that you did. So just wanted people to know, I know a lot of people either accidentally or intentionally film vertically with their phones, and they want to be able to bring that up in Rush. So that was it. Thanks.
So was that pretty much it for everyone, you believe?
Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Excellent.
Very nice.
All right. Well, thanks so much, everyone. I really appreciate you coming. Hope you enjoyed and got use out of this, and we hope to hear from you in the future.
Great job. Thanks everybody for attending.
Yeah, thank you.